This episode is brought to you by Classical Conversations. To find out more, please visit classicalconversations.com.
Cross Politic begins in 3, 2, 1.
I have a heart that breaks for a dying city.
Stop cursing your future.
Is not true.
For all intents and purposes, I am a woman.
No government, no political system has ultimate supremacy. Jesus is King of Kings, and it's about time our nation returned in humble submission to his lordship.
You are not protecting women. You are authorizing the destruction of 500,000 little women every year.
I didn't start it. But, sir, with all due respect, that's the argument of a 5-year-old. I didn't start it.
Right, when the Spirit comes upon people, they go to war. They go to battle, and the enemies of God are driven back, and they're slaughtered.
You are listening to Cross Politic with Gabe Wrench, the Water Boy, Pastor Toby Sumter, and the Chocolate Knox.
Hey, y'all, welcome to Cross Politic. We got a full studio today. That means a lot's going on.
Didn't we have a full studio last week, too?
We did, but those were just comedians.
Sorry, Chris. Sorry, Ben.
My fault. But we got some pastors in here.
Is this done?
I think it is.
Can I press it?
You
Please.
Slowly, gently.
Slowly.
I need some.
So this is Dr. Rob
Gagnon. Yep.
And
he wrote a book called The Bible and Homosexual Practice.
Right. So
check it out. It's really thick, and we'll have to ask him why.
Okay. And Dr. Joe, or you're not doctor yet.
Doctor. Master.
The Reverend.
The great one.
The Holy Reverend.
Joe Rigney.
Joe Rigney.
Yeah.
I got a hug from Joe.
Yeah, I know. And
I got a serious. No. It wasn't just like a hug. No. Let me just give you an example.
Don't do that. Stop.
Get off the microphone.
So I'm ready to pull away. I'm ready to pull away. And he's like, No, you don't.
And you know what he did to me?
What?
I walked in and he just gave me the fist.
Yep.
Oh, that's because you're not the weaker brother.
No?
I'm the weaker brother.
No?
Yeah. I talked about him last time I saw him.
I heard his feelings.
Yeah. Well, not really. It didn't hurt. Come on. It was more like an observation.
Is this a black-white thing?
I don't know, Joe.
Are you the weaker brother? I don't know, Joe.
Wait, what happened?
He said I was mean to him whenever he came to visit in Minneapolis.
I didn't say you were mean. I just said
I hurt his feelings.
Guys, we need to Matthew 18 this.
No. So, an observation. Last time I was there in Minneapolis, we were filming for the call conference, the promos.
Yep.
And I said, you know what? Joe's one of those guys where he doesn't say much. He's kind of reserved. And then you turn the camera on and he just goes,
right.
just on the camera. Right?
Well,
and I'm
but he doesn't talk for you.
But when I'm there, it's like, it's not like this. Like, okay. And then all of a sudden, hey, Jesus wept. And he goes right into his line. And so he came in today and was like, just in case you didn't think I didn't love you.
Yeah. He's doing a little reparations there.
Don't pull away.
Guys,
lean into it.
I'm bored of that story. I'm ready to move on.
I'm just telling you what happened to me. It was awkward and I loved it, so it was great.
Before we get to Cross Politic News,
Are you done?
Guys,
I am done.
You're done. Okay. All right. Thank you for answering your own little.
Yes, that's what I do.
Before we get into Cross Politic News, we got two things I want to make aware to you guys. Make aware. Let's make you guys aware.
You're not doing great today.
Aware. Make you guys. See, people pay more attention.
He's from Texas.
Yes. First off, all our new club members and our current club members actually are going to be able to participate in this. We have kind of a Cross Politic club kit that we're putting together. And so if you guys sign up for our club membership, which, by the way, is just amazing for us, we really appreciate it. You're going to make Cross Politic great again. So please sign up for our club membership. But all our club members are going to get a worldview kit from us, a club kit from us that is going to include Toby's worldview guide on Moby Dick from Canon Press.
I didn't even know you wrote that.
I know. I didn't know either.
He didn't
I didn't even know I wrote it.
Wow.
And we're also going to give away Francis Fukushon's book as part of the club package also.
Oh, the food book.
The food book. What's the title?
It's got a title.
I don't know. We should relabel it.
The food book.
The food book.
Francis Fukushon.
From pastor and chef Francis Fukushon.
The wizard.
Amazing. Kind of a mixed guide of kind of practical theological.
So current club members and people who join will get these.
A kit right from Cross Politic, a couple books, and some other stuff we're going to try to get in there. But for right now, that's what we can promise to you guys. So we're trying to build up our club membership value to you guys. Love you guys. Thank you for signing up. You can go to our website.
There's not really a reason for you to support us, but you do. So it's kind of like, amazing. We should do something for you guys, and we're working on it. Yeah. Another sponsor I want to talk about is Grand American Piano.
Oh, yeah.
They have been down with us since day one. They cover all of our overhead costs so that we don't have to pay for lights. And
they're downstairs.
And air conditioning.
And internet and all the stuff. Yep.
And So everything that they've been here since day one for us. And so you guys should check out Grand American Piano. What they do is they revitalize old dead pianos, and it's kind of like the
100-year-old Steinways.
Oh, they're beautiful.
Oh man, they're amazing.
Mason and Hamlin's beautiful piano. So
every time I walk through his studio, I wish like I could play piano all over again.
It's like the Valley of Dry Pianos down there.
That is exactly right.
Way to go, Joe.
Yeah. Look at you.
Raise them dry pianos.
I'm a pastor.
I was thinking of it kind of feels like a piano morgue downstairs.
It does.
Only they're not getting ready for burial.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting ready. They're getting ready for resurrection.
That's like commercial.
The world.
That's good.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So these are 100-year-old Steinways. You guys got to check out Grand American Piano.
If you have an old piano that needs refurbishing,
or you need to buy a new piano or a refurbished piano, which is better than new. Listen to Clint talk about these pianos is amazing because he talks about the fact that the wood, because it took so long to create that wood, now we just go through like, okay, 30 years, wood's done, chop it up, let's go. You got hundreds and hundreds of years that it took these trees to grow, and they're using this type of wood. We don't get those kind of pianos anymore, and they're selling for better prices, and they sound better.
Than brand new Steinways.
Yeah, exactly, than brand new Steinways. So
Huge.
grandamericanpiano.com, check them out. They're great supporters of Cross Politic, and we're grateful for them.
Yep, and you surprised me on that one because we got one more, decreedesign.com. So one of
we're just getting sponsors all over the place. Why are we so
and we're so
broke
grateful. And these are Christian brothers that work with us, and so we really encourage you guys. Decree Design, brother Joe out there. He has a graphic design and web development company out of, I believe, Kentucky. So he might even be able to get you some Kentucky bourbon or something.
Right. I mean, that better come with the deal.
So a website and Kentucky bourbon, a graphic design and Kentucky bourbon, whatever's going on there, Joe. You're doing a great work.
Thank you very much.
So guys, check out decreedesign.co if you need graphic design and web development help.
If you're a club member, all these are going to be in your email.
That's
right. So that's another reason to sign up for club membership.
That's right. All right. Let's get into cross-politic news. There's some big stuff going on with what's now not the Boy Scouts anymore.
The not Boy Scouts.
The not Boy Scouts
of America.
Anymore. Are they going to change their name?
So
I think it's the Scouts formerly known as Boys.
That's probably not, but that's funny.
Scouts, maybe it's just Scouts.
So wasn't it just 2 years ago they allowed open homosexuals in Boy Scouts?
Right.
And then within the 2-year time frame, now they've basically
and leaders. Scout leaders. So
first phase was we'll just let homosexual boys into this. And then now they let homosexual
not leaders
and not leaders.
Right.
This ain't gonna happen. And then they let leaders in, and then now they just let girls in. So there's just no such thing as Boy Scouts.
What about
anymore.
Transgenderism? Did they also allow girls who think that they're boys in? I can't.
Right.
I get lost sometimes.
Did they skip a step?
I'm not sure. We may have to go back and be a little more internally self-consistent here.
I wonder if they let animals in, the bears that they go and in the woods and camp with.
Anything. And what is a girl anyway?
Well, and the Girl Scout leadership is also complaining, right? Because the Girl Scout leadership is concerned now that girls will be drawn from
back over
the
here.
Girl Scouts and go into the
hilarious.
Boy Scouts. And of course, the Girl Scouts have already made the accommodation that boys who think that they are girls can join the Girl Scouts. So it's a little bit of an inconsistency there to be that concerned about a rigid line between male and female when you've essentially already said that biological maleness is not necessarily a limitation on entering the Girl Scouts.
That's hilarious.
Right?
Well, and here's the big thing that was reported this last week is that the Mormon Church officially pulled out of the Boy Scouts. So they no longer partner with the Boy Scouts, which means if all the Mormon kids left, it'd be about a 450,000 pullout decline in enrollment for Boy Scouts.
I saw a headline about that. Yeah.
I think he has a question.
Yep.
Did you say the Mormons pulled out?
I did.
Before all the Christians?
Yes. No. That's not a fair statement. Because the Christians started Trail USA. So there's actually a Christian alternative to the Boy Scouts. When all the homosexual stuff started going down in the Boy Scouts, a big movement kind of
Trail USA came. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
and did they put a dent inside of the Boys and Girls?
Yeah, that's a good
Boy
question.
Scouts?
I know when we talked about Trail USA last time, this is about a year ago on the show, I had one of their camp guide, whatever they call them, camp guide
Scout leaders.
I didn't
trail leaders.
Trail leaders.
Whew, I was getting a little nervous there because the Mormons start beating us and stuff. I get a little nervous all of a sudden. Like, whoa, hey.
No, it's good.
We under some bad judgment right now.
But the trail leader contacted.
Nobody tell me.
No, we are.
So should I turn around? If I look, will I turn this off? I just want to know where we at in this. You know what I'm saying?
No, that's where we are.
Okay,
that's
all right. I'm gonna keep looking this way. Put the blinders on.
But the trail leader contacted me and he said it's growing like crazy. So he
good.
So a lot of Christians have left Boy Scouts.
Yeah,
and now the Mormons are leaving.
And so I think in 5 years, there's going to be hardly any resemblance of any sort of whatever the new name is now. It's like Scouts BSA. BSA.
So it's like
some sort of
they kept the acronym
sexual
they
thing
got the
or
BS
something.
part, right?
Yeah, be careful. Yeah, it's like there's some euphemisms in there.
All right.
Watch out.
Yeah.
So guys, get your kids in Trail USA. All right, do that.
At least get them out of the Boy Scouts.
Absolutely.
But this is what happens though when our culture starts saying that there's no difference between a boy and a girl. Like this collapse, right?
Oh, yeah.
Boy Scouts has to go. First of all, your marriage is gone too, right? The kids aren't your own.
Yeah.
All this happens because of what happens how would we define men and women? When we start misdefining it, removing the titles that God has given it, what do you expect to happen to culture, society?
Right. And in fact, if you think that being male itself inherently is toxic,
right,
and has
exactly.
to be contained in some way, like it's radioactive combustible material, then obviously you're going to have to dilute it. You're going to have to let girls who think there are boys in, and you're going to have to let girls in, whether or not they think they're boys. One way or the other, you have to find some way of containing it. What they don't realize is that the greatness of an organization like the Boy Scouts in the past is that they get to have male role models that show them how to socialize their maleness in appropriate ways.
Right.
And now that kind of great dynamic is going to be lost with this.
Yeah,
that's right.
And that is a significant kind of development, and it is mocked. I see it mocked sometimes when people lament the loss of male spaces. Like, so there's Christians who are lamenting the loss of male spaces, where guys can go and kind of be guys.
That's why we come here.
I know, that's right. And
actually,
and there's an important place for mixed spaces. Men and women have to be able to be together, and they complement one another. And then there's an important sense in which men orient to one another differently. They talk to one another differently. And so to have spaces where men can do that and where women can do that is a really important thing. And the more that those collapse, the more that you're going to have the toxic masculinity, because it's reactive. It's like, and so, or you either get the man cave thing where if I can't have any spaces where I can be a guy out there, then I'm just going to retreat into my cave.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to go, and then I'm going to get online and I'm going to find a bunch of other angry dudes, and we're just going to burn the whole place down.
Well, and specifically, what they're finding is Islam. I mean, a lot of angry young white guys.
Well, and
black guys.
Yeah, I was going to say it happens a lot in the black community.
Are finding Islam because Islam at least it's talk about toxic masculinity, but it's got a doctrine of masculinity and being being a man.
It looks like
blowing stuff up.
Well, and this has been bubbling for a while, right? I mean, you guys, this is going to lead me into my next segment here with Eric Schneiderman. A.G. Schneiderman got Me Too'd. He got ousted, right?
Yes.
From New York, got ousted. And one of the...
for like sexual abuse or assault or something like this.
Deviance and,
weird
apparently stuff. Like strangling his women.
Yeah, you said it was role-playing.
Hey, what's a woman? What's a woman? I don't even know what a woman is.
Well,
what's wrong with that?
But this
She's not a woman.
We cannot be bothered by these definitions.
Yeah, I know,
please.
right? Yeah.
But this is kind of to Joe's point a little bit, is like all his sexual deviances are coming out of this machoism in bed.
Yeah.
And it's coming out, and but the funny thing in all this is Trump is like the only guy who can't get Me Too'd effectively in all this.
The Teflon president.
Yeah. Everything bounces off him, and Eric, he just has 4 complaints against him. Yeah. Nothing's been verified yet. But he stepped down.
Schneiderman spoke at one of the women's marches, right?
In New York.
Yeah.
With Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein?
Weinstein.
Yeah.
It's okay to mess up his name. Nobody cares.
Yeah, all right.
Nobody cares.
So this reminds, this is totally this is the French Revolution going on, right? I mean, you have these
right.
It's a sort of anarchy thing where you start the revolution, but when the revolution is not built on actual standards of justice, the guillotine is going to come for you. So, Robespierre starts the thing, and he's going after bad guys, whoever, Louis XIV or whoever it was, one of the Louis, and, all the hierarchy and Marie Antoinette and everybody gets guillotined, but pretty soon the blood demands more blood.
Yep.
Right.
And you're going to get Me Too'd. I mean, if he who fights, uses the sword, dies by the sword, you Me Too, you're going to get Me Too'd.
Right.
There's no way to stop the logic of that because there's no logic to it.
Right. Well, partly too, I think it's about a sort of abstract image of liberation. And I'm sure here's a guy who apparently, according to women, former girlfriends have testified, he's attempting to choke them, to dominate them. He tells them to call themselves whores and slaves.
Yep.
So I think what he must have thought liberation was about, was you get to pretty much do whatever you want to do.
Right.
And what he wanted women to do is to be sexually open and available to himself, which he then thought would also entitle him to have his worst instincts come out. Right. So it really wasn't about honoring somebody else. It was this sort of mass self-glorification liberation movement of some sort.
Wow. Right. So when someone else wants to take him down, that's their deepest desires.
Right.
There was nothing logical, there was nothing rational, there was no justice, there's no standard by which to measure what is freedom. What does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a woman?
Right.
One of the things I think Doug's article talking about this, I can't remember the title of it right now, but patriarchy and dominion don't ever go anywhere. Like someone's going to be exercising.
The whole. It's nature. Like there's fundamental. We're built certain ways, and then you got the fall, which is going to distort masculinity, femininity in various ways, and so you can't. Egalitarianism is a fiction that we try to impose, but you can't. You can only. It's like the whack-a-mole game. You can push it down, and it's going to come back with a vengeance in very ugly ways.
Gangs. You're going to get the mafia. Right. You're going to get men are going to be men in some way, shape, or form. And you can whack it down on one side, and they're going to pop up, and they're going to dominate in some way, and they're going to dominate either in a glorious godly way, through service and self-sacrifice and protection and so on, like Jesus, or they're going to dominate like Schneiderman. And
masculinity doesn't go anywhere. Either men become women and women become man, but it doesn't go anywhere. Masculinity is always going to be around.
There's always a butch in the relationship.
Quick, do something. Do something.
I don't think there's any segue to that.
No, but you're right. There is. It's amazing to me. Like when you see two gay guys, you always see one is a man, one's they still model it in one way or another. You can't. And it's like, why don't you just be who you are? But you can't. You have to model. You have to model that one way or another because you're supposed to meet like this. You know what I mean? Right. You know you're designed that way, and the whole time you're fighting against it. Anyway, he says it better because he has a bow tie on. No offense, I can't. I'm gonna tell you like I tell
There's tension between you and Knox.
Really dressed up for us.
I tried to give him a hug, but
no, we were good. We're good. I accept the hug. We're
gonna have to Matthew 18 this.
It's coming.
More cross politics. I can't even talk. See, you got me nervous. More cross politics when we come back. Don't look at me like that, man. I didn't do anything. I'm just saying. It was just an observation. That's all. Will you forgive me?
Classical Conversation supports homeschooling parents by cultivating the love of learning through a Christian worldview in fellowship with other families. We provide a classical, Christ-centered curriculum, local, like-minded communities across the United States and in several countries, and we train parents who are striving to be great classical educators in the home. For more information and to get connected, please visit our website at classicalconversations.com. Classical, Christian, get connected, get community.
It's just complicated.
But our relationship?
That's all it is. There we go. We're bringing it.
No.
This song gets me fired up every time.
No.
You know what? Gabe.
Hey, welcome back to Cross Politic. With us in the studio today, we have Dr. Robert Gagnon. He's the former associate professor of New Testament at Pittsburgh Theological Seminary for 24 years.
Mm-hmm. That's right? Correct.
Yep. He rocks a serious bow tie.
That's great. Yeah, he does.
Come on now.
He's an elder in the Presbyterian Church USA. Is that true? That's still true?
Yes, still true.
Holds a BA from Dartmouth, an MTS from Harvard Divinity School, PhD from Princeton Theological Seminary. And
did you say USA?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
ACUSA.
Dave's like, how do you get...
We can talk about that some if you want.
All right. I'm going to make some notes.
You just blew Knox's mind.
Speak into the lapel, would you please?
Yeah.
Just making a
Dr. Gagnon's primary fields are Pauline theology and sexuality.
USA.
His book, The Bible and Homosexual Practice, which you showed a little while ago, Gabe.
Still Christian?
Has rocked some boats over the years. And
is Ichabod over the door?
We also have with us Pastor Joe Rigney.
I know he's a Christian.
He's a pastor at City's Church. Is that right? City's Church in Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm. Will you tell the third cousin to Jesus I said hi? John Piper, in case you didn't know.
Third cousin Jesus, John Piper.
Would you let him know?
I'll say hey.
Yeah, give him a hug for me. He'll love that.
You're also a professor at Bethlehem Baptist College and Seminary.
Bethlehem College and Seminary. Yep.
No Baptist.
No Baptist. Sorry.
Yeah.
Bethlehem.
I mean, we are, but
are you ashamed?
No.
Here, you're a little bit ashamed.
Nope.
No, okay. Just checking. Surrounded by four Presbyterians.
Go baptize your kids if you have children.
Courage.
You have courage and conviction.
Where did that come from?
What about the clarity? The clarity part.
Courage and the clarity.
We'll work on that. We'll work on that. And and you like baseball.
So we're gonna talk about courage and clarity, and you guys know that his name's John the Baptist, right?
No, baptizer.
Right.
Baptist.
Yeah, baptizer.
Yeah.
Baptists have a hard time with their Greek, don't they?
If you knew Greek, Joe.
Occupational noun.
Okay, now you're all right.
That's right.
That's
right.
Really.
Yep.
We can get that.
I was trying to give you a segue into something that we could agree on.
Yeah.
Which was baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just checking on that.
So when the glove catches the ball, is it baptized? Okay, anyway. But how do you...
He did do adult submersion, so I think we ought to note that.
Yes,
okay?
that's right.
All right.
I mean, just like Jesus. It's okay. You guys are good.
Yeah, that's all right. We don't judge you.
So we wanted to. I wanted to get over here with this the Bible and homosexual practice. This came out in 2001. And we were talking just before the show began. At the time you wrote this, it was actually, you said, in conformity with the standards of the PCUSA.
That's correct.
And but nevertheless, it didn't get a sort of standing ovation, particularly from the folks in your denomination.
Well, of course, we have a fair number of people. Certainly had more then than we do now, but people within the renewal side of the PCUSA, who of course are very glad to have something like that out.
Yeah.
But the vast majority, I would say, of the leadership within the PCUSA was not happy because they were moving in the other direction. What I try to show in this book here, you have lots of arguments that people make with regard to the Bible about the issue of homosexual practice. And there's a tendency to try to find some way of dismissing the biblical evidence by either reframing it in a way which I don't think actually reflects what it is saying, or by sometimes now it's more in the direction of rejecting it. So, for example, a couple of people I've debated recently are willing to acknowledge that Jesus would have opposed every form of same-sex union, committed or promiscuous.
That's
or
a debate.
Otherwise.
Oh yeah, this is
that's a debate.
Yeah, no, there's
there are most people don't want to concede that point. Who support homosexual unions because they know that's a pretty tough hill to climb when you're saying that Jesus himself would have opposed it, and he would have opposed it based on the Genesis text in Genesis 1:27 and Genesis 2:24, among other things.
In his own words.
In his own words, right. And his definition of marriage. We can get into that if you want to at some point, which necessarily presupposes a male-female foundation. But now some are actually willing to go so far to say, for example, I debated one professor at Fuller Seminary, no longer at Fuller, who actually started the debate, this was in Tucson, Arizona, at a Presbyterian church, by saying Dr. Gagnon is going to tell you that Jesus would have opposed every form of homosexual union. And I agree that is true. He would have. However, he said, Jesus had insufficient information to make that determination.
Wow.
Inconceivable.
What?
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. So the Son of God had insufficient evidence
and
to
now
make
we
that
have
determination.
Christological problems now. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And that's where it could lead, potentially. What I was trying to do is close off the door to people who are saying that somehow the Bible is serviceable to committed homosexual unions. They might use an argument about promiscuity and argue that those are the only kinds of relationships that were known in antiquity. Or they might use an orientation argument and say that they didn't know anything about any form of congenital basis to same-sex attractions. Or they might use what we call a misogyny argument, that the only reason that people were opposed to homosexual practice was they wanted to keep women down, literally and figuratively. And if you had a same-sex relationship, one woman would be on top, or if in a male-male union, one male would be on the bottom, and they didn't want that hierarchical differentiation to be blurred. That was a big mouthful of syllables. But one of those three arguments.
Even like the
don't try and say that, Gabe. You can't do that.
I'm not going to say this clean on camera, but even like the sexual intercourse and positions were arguments against hierarchy and for egalitarianism at some level.
Right. The only problem with the male-male union is that one male would be on the bottom. He would be a receptive partner in a penetrative act. And so we can't have that happen because men are always superior to women. So that's their argument that they use. You're going to generally find one of those three arguments in play.
Wow.
And what this book was designed to do is to say none of those arguments work. That the scripture is very consistent from Genesis to Revelation, that there's a male-female foundation for all sexual ethics. And in fact, one could even make the case that even the Bible's prescriptions on incest and the Bible's New Testament prescriptions on polygamy are themselves predicated on a male-female foundation for marriage. So that's the bedrock. That's the foundation. And what people are trying to eliminate now is the very foundation for sexual purity. And now what we have to do really to be more consistent is go back and take care of some of the issues that we let go. Like, for example, now we really should support polyamory, at least of a committed type, and a close kinship unions, at least of an adult consensual committed type.
Well, it seems to me, in all this debate on sexuality and ethics and everything, the root issues really is the scripture inerrant and is God sovereign?
Well, it's even more elementary than that. In other words, I don't go out and make the argument scripture is inerrant, therefore listen to scripture. If I did that, not everyone would hear the argument. What I say is this is clearly a core value within scripture itself. So if you want to tell me, well, we don't do X or we don't do Y anymore, how come we're pressing this? The case that I'm making is this is the foundation for everything else in sexual ethics. So if you want to eliminate this foundation, you're going to have to give up standards across the board. As long as the relationship can claim to be adult, consensual, committed, you're going to have to accept every type available. That includes number of partners. That includes close kinship relationships.
So what if they're willing to swallow the reductio?
Well, some are. Yeah, so I've actually had conversations with a family member where he says, I'm okay with the marriage for a brother and sister, and I'm okay with marriage with 3 or more partners. Well, okay, well, now it's going to be a little bit of a tougher argument still. But you can make a philosophical argument in addition to a scripture argument. If you want to abide by scripture, you're a Christian, you rightly think Jesus is the Son of God, he has a certain amount of authority as a result of that, then you really don't have any out. If you're not a Christian, however, and you're willing to accept this reductio that you mentioned.
Well, I think even Christians are willing to accept that reductio, especially in the PC USA. Right. So
yes, I'm still a member. If you didn't know that, that's why we had that little body blow there momentarily.
Inconceivable.
Anyway,
in the end, you can talk about there are real reasonable reasons why you would not want to promote homosexual practice. I mean, homosexual practice, many people want to present a same-sex union as being basically the same as a heterosexual union, only they just happen to be of the same sex, but that's inconsequential anyway, so who cares?
Right.
There's a lot more to it than that.
So what do you say?
And I think a big part of it, though, is what Rob's book does is it's clarifying, right? Because then the issue does come down to, are you with Jesus or not? What you can't do is marshal Jesus in support of the revision.
Right, exactly.
Right? You got to ditch Jesus to go where you want to go.
Right.
And so let's just get clear on where we're at.
Right. And
as opposed to the kinds of arguments that want to use Jesus as he would have if he'd have known, if he would have had sufficient information or the trajectory of the scriptures is in that direction. It's close off all those doors and then bring it back down to fundamental Jesus.
So what do you say to people, though, who maybe say, I agree with your point personally and privately and so on, but who am I to say that they haven't found love, or how does it really affect me? How does it really affect the church or broader society? Why does it matter? Even though that's my private conviction, I believe in Jesus that way, but
I'm not going to force that on you.
Why should I oppose it more publicly or broadly? What might you say to that?
Well, there are all sorts of different levels to that, answering that. One, of course, is the political issue, which is namely we're seeing the fruits of rejecting a male-female foundation for marriage and the implications for religious freedom and freedom of speech. Now people are being required almost to have coerced speech at certain points. and to affirm this. It's not enough just to say live and let live.
Right.
You actually have to embrace it. And if you don't embrace it, then you basically have to be pushed out of the public sector completely.
Right. To not embrace it is fundamentally to deny the foundation of their morality. I mean, their
That's right.
morality.
They cannot allow disagreement on that point.
Right.
You're basically the moral equivalent of a racist if you now reject their position. Now, even, as you know, it's even gone to the transgender issue.
Right.
So you can't even now, if you refer to somebody with a pronoun that appropriately references their biological sex.
Right.
There are some places like New York City, which you can be fined for doing.
And
it's extraordinary.
Talked about that on the show.
So you basically have to lie. They're asking you to do. And if you're not willing to do that, then there are all sorts of occupations you can no longer hold.
Right.
And you open yourself also up to these fines and other prosecution in other ways. So that's one issue, but it also affects relationships in general. You know, I'm going to say something really radical here. And
Do I need to hit the beat button?
Well, you know, make sure your pulse is going, and we can get the medication in if you need it.
I'm ready.
But this is it, and I'm sorry if I offend anybody here, but men and women are different. Okay, well, I guess that went over like a lead balloon. So, men and women actually are different, and they're different in ways that moderate the extremes of the other sex. So that when you put together a man and a female, the extremes of masculine and feminine sexuality are each moderated and the gaps are filled. Now, it doesn't always work, right? But it has a salutary effect in general on such relationships.
This is the idea fundamentally of man is not good alone.
That's right.
And 1 Corinthians 11, Paul's talking about, we need one another.
Right.
There's this dependence on one another.
But not only just not good just to be alone, but also if you're going to be involved sexually with another, you don't want to be involved sexually with a sexual same. It's too much already you. When that happens, the extremes of your own sex get multiplied, exacerbated.
Right.
They don't get moderated, and the gaps don't get filled. So what we find that the perfect laboratory for this is looking at generally how male homosexual and female homosexual relationships work out.
Yeah.
And what we find is, what many on the left want to say is that, well, societal homophobia leads to this disproportionately high rate of measurable harm. But what's odd is that the measurable harm is different for each in different ways. So, not surprisingly, with regard to male homosexual unions, you have much higher rates of numbers of sex partners over the course of life than you would in lesbian relationships. This is hardly surprising, given the male libido, right, and male testosterone.
Right. Yeah.
And the amount of sexually transmitted infections that homosexual males report is off the charts compared to every single other group, including, of course, lesbians. For women, that's a little more difficult to figure out because as men, we all know that women are better. And we're more restrained, they have a more holistic sexuality.
I reject
anyway.
that.
I'm going to actually go with that because men are more genitally stimulated. They're more visually focused.
I like to say better for what?
Better, well, yeah.
Right. Have babies?
A hammer.
Men provide some useful elements. I don't want to diss them completely.
Thank you.
But in lesbian relationships, actually, you might think this is a little bit surprising because they're more monogamous. But lesbian relationships don't last as long, on average, even as male homosexual relationships do.
Wow.
And the reason for that has not only been suggested by me, but it's also been suggested by two women researchers from some California school, I won't mention, that have worked on lesbian family relationships. And although I came up with the idea before they did, but nice to have the reinforcement.
Yeah.
And that is women just have more of their intimacy needs, more of their, let me put it this way, more of their self-worth, more of their sense of importance, significance, and validation from these relationships than do men on average. Men still, much as we might try to get in touch with our feminine self, we still derive a great deal of our sense of self-worth from what we do in our activities. But from women, it's much more important to have that developed in the context of these relationships. You probably will sometimes get a man complaining to a therapist that his wife doesn't share her innermost feelings with him often enough.
Yeah.
But usually, overwhelmingly, it's on the other side.
Other
Men
way
may
around.
think, gee, I've been doing a great job at this. Yeah. And the wife is complaining, no, he doesn't. Right? So women have put a great deal of stress sometimes on the relationship in terms of their expectations and demands on that relationship. We have two women having the same
how could that go wrong? How could that go wrong?
It ends up with a high relational turnover. Yeah. And also just in general, because women more generally are in tune with their psychological makeup, there's a higher incidence of mental health issues attending lesbian relationships than even male homosexual relationships. Now, this isn't going to happen in every case, but it's a significant difference on both sides. And it speaks to basic differences between men and women and why male-female unions have been ordained by God.
And back then to my original question, which is just that. So these are ways in which this is doing societal harm.
That's right.
So it's not just that it's wrong. Of course it's wrong, but God's standards are always there for a reason. He's protecting us from the effects of our sin.
Right.
It's doing harm to families. It's doing harm to neighborhoods, communities, society. I read Anthony Esselin's book, Defending Marriage,
Great guy,
couple years back.
PCUSA too?
No, he's Catholic.
No,
actually.
he's Catholic.
This is not going the way I wanted it to.
I mean, honestly, he's my favorite Roman Catholic right now. Living Roman Catholic. Chesterton, of course, is up there.
Yeah.
But,
Robert George.
Not today.
A shout out too for Robert George, Ryan Anderson, Maggie Gallagher, a number of others.
There's some solid folks doing really good work. But I remember in Defending Marriage, the thing that he pointed out to me, and the chapter that I think hit me the hardest, was the way he discussed how homosexuality and homosexual marriage in particular is destroying the nature of friendship. That's the other thing that's being stolen in this. And so we were talking about the Boy Scouts earlier, where, now, as soon as you introduce homosexuality, I mean, were there ever any men and boys tempted to these things over? Of course there were. But to the extent that it was being suppressed, what was being protected was friendship.
That's right.
The boys could be boys and they could hang out and play together and they could run down and
could they give each other hugs?
They could probably give each other hugs.
Yeah, without it feeling weird.
Yeah.
And then it wouldn't feel weird.
And they could,
it couldn't be beyond a 30-second interval.
Yeah. This was longer than 30.
You had to be there.
But now that there's this thing, the societal norm, or is trying to normalize this idea of sexual attraction between guys and girls and so on. Now everything is suspect.
Right.
Yeah. Now
it introduces sexual tension into a relationship for which there need not and should not be any. And it's not like I'm saying that heterosexuals have always been doing great. Obviously,
no.
We wouldn't have even come to the issue of affirming homosexual relations or transgenderism if we hadn't already messed up in terms of longevity of the relationship. Yeah. In terms of fidelity to the relationship. So these are issues like divorce and remarriage and so forth that we have to get a hold of in our own community. But nonetheless, there still is a fundamental difference. What still tends to be the exception in heterosexual relationships is the norm in most homosexual relationships. So when you call that marriage and you're seeing virtually every homosexual relationship, and when I say virtually every, I mean talking about 75 to 90% or more, is not going to be more than a couple of years. So and is not going to be exclusive, right? Because about 40% of committed homosexual relationships are open relationships, where they agree to actually have another part. You can have other outside partners as long as you come back home to me. These inevitably, you have to redefine the definition of marriage.
All right. When we come back, I want to ask you a question. I want to ask you, why is this That's
We're getting there.
Why is this the battleground? And then I want to ask you, you got a new book out, man. I want to hear about it. I want to hear about it.
I didn't know about this.
More across politics. Is it a hugging book? Is it you hug people?
No.
This is Cy Timbrunke with Answer Anyone Apologetics. In California in the 1950s, car ownerships were printed on pink paper. Racing for Pinks was a drag race in which the loser of the race would forfeit ownership of his car to the winner. Now imagine you were going to have a race for Pinks. The first thing you'd want to do is make sure your opponent actually owns the car that he's driving. Let's say you produced your pink slip and asked your opponent to do the same, but he just revved his engine and yelled, "Come on, let's race. What are you afraid of?" Now you might be confident that you'd win that race, but you'd be crazy to race him if you couldn't prove that the car was his. Even crazier if you knew that he'd stolen it. As Christians, we're commanded to engage people with the defense of our faith. Our opponents will come at us with logical, scientific, and moral objections to the existence of God. But who owns logic? Who owns science? Who owns morality? Jesus Christ. In Romans 11:36 we read that from God, through God, and to God are all things. When the unbeliever attempts to engage you, they're doing so with stolen goods, and we let them. Jesus Christ has equipped us with tools for reasoning. Don't let the unbeliever steal them when they want to engage you. Make them account for them. Make them show you their pink slip. For more apologetic answers, visit AnswerAnyone.com.
Well, Cross Politic has a new sponsor. Who, you might be asking? Decree Design. Decree Design is a graphic design and web development company that serves your business by helping you speak clearly through visual representation. Serving 90-plus businesses in logo design, print design, brand strategy, web development, and more. Decree Design has a skill and personal touch to customize a package specifically catered to your needs of your business, great or small, and provide personal assistance every step of the way. Whether you're a well-established real estate broker or entrepreneur getting your business off the ground, Decree Design will help your company's visual presence speak clarity and truth. For more information, please visit decreedesign.co or schedule a consultation with Joe at decreedesign.com. Yeah, Joe at decreedesign.com. Hey, and tell them Cross Politics sent you. Gagnon, Dr. Gagnon. I said it right?
Yep.
Okay.
Stress on the first syllable.
Gagnon. Dr. Gagnon.
If you want to do it the French way, Gaillon.
See, you just messed me up. I can't do that.
Welcome back. This is Cross Politic, and with us in the studio today, we got Dr. Robert Gagnon.
You said it right. You're not Gabe, so it's great.
That's great. And Pastor Joe Rigney.
The great one.
What?
Who,
hugs a lot.
And
he knows that they're a cousin to Jesus, too.
Just a reminder that if you're not already a member of Cross Politic, you are invited to go to crosspolitic.com, find that button that says join, and join up and support this craziness. And we now have membership kits that are going out. People who are already members, you're going to get one of these in the mail soon.
Starting June 1st.
Starting June 1.
Wow, that's great.
And apparently one of the things you're getting is this thing, Worldview Guide.
Something you wrote.
Worldview Guide.
Yeah, Worldview Guide. Canon Classics. It's something I guess.
So you read Moby Dick?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, he wrote the guide.
Yeah.
He saw the movie.
He's on the that's a guide to the
Gregory
movie.
Peck was involved in that, I think.
I read the Cliff Notes at least.
Yeah.
Don't ask me that question.
Anyway, So you had a question.
So Doc, right now when I look at the landscape of things, I see a lot going on. And I don't know if you guys over there, the PC USA, know of anything that's happening outside of your culture. But right now, big topics are race. And,
sure, we follow the Methodists.
You guys, you guys are probably the cause of it when I think about it, But race is a huge topic. The Me Too movement has bled over inside of Christendom as well. So it seems like when I look at the landscape, I'm saying, you know what? If you want to get liberalism into conservative thinking, what you got to do is use guilt and sin, and then you fill that with all your liberalism in the back. So you Trojan horse this thing.
We have the Black Lives Matter, and we just had this MLK 50
but
celebration.
it's been going on for a long time. I mean,
it's connected. They try to make a connection, and they try to say there's a similarity between sexual orientation and race, even though one condition is benign, immutable, and non-behaviorable, and the other is none of those things.
Well, it's amazing to me that black people...
Other than that, they're the same.
Well, black people are eating it up, too. They're like, yes, the gay is the new black. Are you crazy?
Yes.
And anyway, so what bothers me is that if this is what's happening right now, because I see this starting to bleed its way over into more conservative...
It is, actually. And I also
bad.
If I might make a plug before you even go further, is that Matthew Vines, for example, is trying to make inroads in the evangelical movement. He's done a lot to popularize the work of James Brownson and others. And so
tag Matthew Vines on Twitter. We'd love to get him on the show.
James Brown, the singer?
No. James Brownson.
Brownson.
Son. Yes,
okay, I got you.
Yeah,
different guy.
So I am actually working on a short book, maybe about 200 pages or so, response to both Brownson and Vines, among other things, and updating that. Hopefully get that manuscript finished in a couple of months.
So if this is what's leading, what's the Trojan horse?
You mean what's the end result?
Well, I mean, if this
what
is
are they trying to sneak in?
Yeah, what are they trying to?
Through all the sexual
because this is a pretty bold move. Homosexuality. Every Christian should go like, no, next.
Well, it's kind of to figure out what is next beyond this, because this is the whole shebang right here, right? When you're undermining a male-female foundation for marriage,
you're done.
Yeah, the rest is just mopping up operations. Yeah. You're trying to be more internally consistent with a program you've already more radically have formulated and approved in accepting such unions, right? I mean, gender itself now is up for grabs. You can't even in some schools, I know this is true in England, in private schools and some places in public schools, and same thing in some private places, schools in the United States. To even be able to call boys and girls,
right,
or to make that kind of differentiation in sports teams or other activities
right,
is already being challenged. So nothing less than gender itself. So what's beyond that? I mean, you tell me. That's pretty radical as it already is.
Is that the end game then? Like, okay, we're in the last straw, guys, and this all breaks.
I think it's ultimately a sexual free for all at that point. I mean, sex is really, it's hard to get beyond the issue of sex. I mean, I'm going to say something radical here. Sex for many people is pleasurable, okay?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a private experience. It tends towards self-justification.
Careful, guys.
And essentially, people want to be able to do what they want to do, sexually speaking. And they want to have that kind of freedom. And Christianity has been viewed as the number one restraint.
That's
that kind of liberation.
Well, this is Satan's playbook. He always uses something to get at your soul.
Right.
Like he gives you Adam and Eve the fruit. Well, what was the goal of the whole fruit? Was to tear the relationship between God and man.
Right.
Sex is doing the same thing. It's the Trojan horse is to get at Satan's. You running the playbook on us right now.
We don't even need a Trojan
church.
horse anymore, do we? We just is like, well, here it is.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah,
right.
it's pretty obvious and clear.
Back to your question though, and maybe this is something that tags a little bit with the mainline denomination thing that he keeps poking you about.
PCUSA,
but which is so. There are more conservative denominations, PCA being one of them, which is, I think, the largest semi-still conservative denomination.
Kind of.
But a bunch of us are seeing the cracks.
Oh yeah.
In the dike or whatever you want to call it, in the wall, in the fortress. Yeah, thank you. It's a family show. But my point being though is so. You've seen this happen in the PCUSA.
Right.
The United Methodist Church has had to, is battling the same thing. The mainline, CUSA, Episcopal Church USA.
Do I need to beep that out?
Maybe CUSA.
Okay. CUSA. Yeah. And this is going to happen in the PCA. It's coming.
But what's happened is
coming.
So back to your question though. So what happened though is I think you're right. I don't think it actually was a bunch of homosexuals coming to the door and saying, "Hey, would you ordain us?"
No.
Because if they did that and when they did that, the answer was no.
Right.
But what happened was, I do think that there's been a slow
woman deacons.
Right. I mean, yeah.
It's the boiling frog.
Right.
Boiling frog.
There's a boiling frog thing, and so that's been happening over 50, 60, 70 years. I don't know, longer in our country, and there's a bunch of us seeing the same play being run on the PCA and similar denominations, and we were like, hey, don't do that, don't do. And they're like,
you're a hater and you're racist,
and they don't seem to see it or think, no, but it's different with us,
right?
And we've got our Book of Church Order, and we've got our Confession of Faith, and all these kinds of things. I mean, what would you say to our brothers in denominations that haven't fully capitulated yet on some of these things? And this is back to the how do you try to wave your hand and say there's a Trojan horse here?
Yeah, watch out. It's coming to a neighborhood church close to you very soon. I mean, it is going to happen, and it is a process, and they do start at a very low level. Let's hear all the voices. And there's a reduction of the significance of the issue. We hear that now in lots of evangelical venues. This is only one of many issues. Why are you making such a big deal of it? This is already the start,
That's
right?
Good.
So
I've heard those things.
Right.
I've heard those things.
And if it's only one of many issues, and we've already made accommodations on divorce remarriage question.
We're all sinners.
Right. Eventually, you're going right down the road here. And the thing to realize is that while all sin is equal in one respect, namely, any sin will get you excluded from the kingdom if personal merit is your means of trying to enter in.
Oh, yeah.
All sin is not equal in all respects. Some sin is more severe than other sins. That's an unpopular view within even evangelical circles, but it's a very biblical view.
Yeah.
Jesus can talk about weightier matters of the law. When Israel was committing the golden calf episode sin, the text says they committed a great sin. Well, you can't have a great sin if all sin is equal in all respects. So it's going to be that kind of movement, the hearing all the voices, the listening. These people are suffering, and there is some genuine suffering, and we do have to be pastoral, but not in the sense that we allow the camel's nose under the tent to say, hey, this is really not so bad. Think about affirming this, right?
Yeah.
That's where the church has to say, we cannot allow that kind of desensitizing of the church to take place.
It seems to me that one of the things that we're up against is that means basically we have to throw down over relatively minor things, which is really hard to do because somebody says we want to hear all the voices, and they're like, what's wrong with hearing all the voices? Well, nothing in principle, but I've seen this play run 15 times.
Exactly.
And the end of this is we're not hearing all the voices. There's, and so you have,
again, but this happens when we don't have men who are full of the Holy Ghost and who are holy themselves, because they have cracks in their own character and makeup. Yeah, and so sin can, I guess I do need to, okay, you might have a point. And it breaks us down because you got sin in your own heart.
Right. Guilty people are very steerable.
Exactly.
Well, that is true. I mean, why in certain churches, like they say the Episcopal denomination, did this issue implode the denomination earlier than many others? There's oftentimes it relates to individual human guilt, and you have children or other relatives or yourself maybe doing things which is a compromise of the Christian ethic. And in order to get that guilt feeling assuaged, if you accept something like homosexual practice, well, you've covered just about every wrong that you've done up until that point, right? So you get a free pass.
In one sense, I mean, like that's why the porn epidemic in relation to this, and they talk about the studies about how people who look at pornography become much more open to all kinds of other stuff, because I can't. How am I going to hold you to a standard that I'm not holding myself to with my computer in my back room or whatever?
Yeah.
And so in churches, if pornography is live and well, and it is, then you ought to expect that steerability.
Right.
All right. So the great one, Mr. Joe Rigney, pastor, elder, newly rocking the bald head. It's lovely.
I wanted to be like you, man.
I thought you were.
I just want to be like Jesus. So we going the right way. So you wrote a book recently. I can't remember the name of it though, because I haven't gotten a copy of it.
That was bold. Lewis on the Christian life.
What would Lewis say right now?
I mean, I think. He'd write another screw tape letter. He'd be able to skewer this stuff.
Yeah.
And he would do it in a way that, he wasn't a pastor and he wasn't a thunderer. So he wasn't going to do he was never he's not a preacher. He's a professor. But what he's going to do is very carefully, Lewis, when he writes, one of the reasons we like him is he sounds like what you hope your conscience sounds like. Like unrelenting. Yeah. I'm not letting you off the hook.
He's a bulldog.
Exactly. He's just going to keep coming. But it's that kind of like, you're only wasting time. And he doesn't have to push hard.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to yell at you, because he's just going to close off logically all of your escape routes. And this is what you're doing, and this is how you're thinking about it. And I'm just going to diagnose. And then he's going to get you back in the corner and go, now you have a choice.
Right.
You're either going to turn back to God or you're not. And that's, his brilliance is in bringing things back down to that fundamental. So the book Lewis and the Christian Life is a lot about the choice that in every area of life, every moment of every day, God is demanding you, not demanding things from you. He's demanding you, and he's not asking just for part of your time or tithe and of your energy or whatever. He's asking for you, and the choice you have before you every moment of every day is either I'm going to put God at the center and I'm going to pursue Him, I'm going to receive that from Him, or I'm not.
Right.
And one path is the path to joy, life, heaven. One path is misery, hell. And then how that choice shows up in a variety of ways, whether it's in sexual ethics or whether it's in friendships or whether it's in family relationship, whatever, it shows up in all of these different ways. But everything he knows, that's the fundamental question. So that's what it is.
I've just been listening to That Hideous Strength.
Yeah.
And I'd read it a few years ago. Have you read it?
No. Okay, guys, look.
What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you people?
I know.
You
don't ask me how much Lewis I've read.
You better take that hug back.
Oh.
I'm working on it. I didn't. Okay, hold on now. I came up in the charismatic background. Basically, the Reformed Church for me started in 1919. I don't have that much history. Okay? I'm coming up. I'm catching up. I'm in the Puritan still, all right?
All right. Okay. All right.
Forgive me.
All right.
Mere Christianity, I read 3 chapters.
Okay.
I'm working on it.
But That Hideous Strength, it struck me this time as I've been going through I just absolutely love it. And it's like Screw Tape Letters and Abolition of Man and Mere Christianity. And then infused into a really gripping narrative.
Right.
And I had never.
That's a good description. I like that.
I'd read it before, but then I've since then read some of those other things, Screw Tape Letters, Abolition of Man, and some of his other things more. And so I'm even more familiar. And so as I go back through and listening to it, it's amazing to me how. I mean, the thing I think you're right. The thing that I love about Lewis is how he understands how we think.
Yeah,
He understands how we think, and so that he has strength in particular to bring it all the way around. I mean, one of the driving things running through that whole story is male-female.
Right. It's different ways.
What does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a woman? And that's one of the threads that he's weaving in this story. And these two lost, this young couple that's married and somewhat estranged, working through what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman, and he gets it. I mean, he gets it then. He sees what year was, I don't even know what year that was.
30s.
Yeah.
It would have been 30s, 40s.
Maybe.
1940s,
yeah. But 50, 60 years ago, at least, he saw what was coming.
Right.
The kind of hubris of man to say,
very hard castle.
Yeah. That I can create this world in my own image rather than receiving the world as given, but I'm going to invent my own destiny, my own meaning, my own purpose. Well, if I can create all of these things, then I can recreate what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman, what marriage is, what a family is, what children are, what all these things.
Yeah.
And he saw it coming, 60, 70 years ago.
If somebody like me who hasn't read a whole lot of Lewis, I've listened to the Screw Tape Letters because it's all audio.
Yeah.
But with your book, Lewis and the Christian Life, would that be a good place to start?
It'd be a good intro in some ways. Like I think that there'll be some chapters that'll be, I don't get what's going on here because you're alluding to
other writings,
that Hideous Strength. I haven't read that. But in general, it's designed to be a kind of synthetic, pulling from different things. Lewis, prayer. How does prayer relate to this? How does he think about the church? Which was difficult because he's unlike other. It's a part of a series, but the other guys in the series were all theologians and pastors, and so you can kind of think, how do they think about the Christian life? Well, you go look at their sermons, and you can just kind of walk down the topics. And I've got to do that Hideous Strength, which was really fun, but it was a hard deal.
Yeah. One of the things that the little that I have read of Lewis and listened to is that when I look at what's going on right now in the culture, Christian fighting, I don't find guys using very much good rhetoric, right? They use a lot of arguments. They want to label it.
Well, rhetoric.
That was a salute to you. I did that on purpose, Gabe.
That's not how this works.
Yeah,
that's not how that.
Really good, rhetoric. But they always want to. Right now, it's happening too with the whole racial thing. They throw an armbar. That's socialism. That's they want to describe
Marxism.
That's Marxism.
Yeah.
This is what's happening to you right now, and it's like that's great, but I don't know how to fight it.
Right.
That's great, but just because a dude's like that's just a fist. He's just punching you in the face. Yeah, I know that. How do I block it? How do I get?
Right.
So, but with Lewis, though, it seemed like he had the whole thing down with rhetoric, and you'd be like, oh, wow.
Right. Yeah, and it's that combination of clear-eyed rationality, logic, wedded to an imagination that was just second to none in terms of its ability to connect the logical argument to a kind of potent image. And so Lewis's images are often what make you go, now I get it.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah, and he's a gracious bulldog. I mean, this is sort of what I think about him. Like, I mean, he's charitable and gracious, but man, he's tenacious and he's fierce at the same time.
That's right.
And you need to get you some Lewis.
I'm working on it.
And get you some That Hideous Strength. Get you some Abolition of Man.
And if you're going to do That Hideous Strength, reading Abolition of Man, and then the Inner Ring.
Yes.
Is one of Lewis's essays, and if you read the Inner Ring and then pay very close attention to some of the characters, you'll see what he's doing is he is narrativizing those essays.
And I think this goes back to your question before about the Trojan horse and how these things happen in society and in communities. Is that whole Inner Ring thing is going on? There are people who are guilty, and so they're insecure, they're afraid. They're trying to make it in life. They're trying to have meaning. They're trying to justify themselves.
Yeah.
They don't want to be left out.
And this creates certain kinds of society, certain kinds of communities, and you don't want to get left out of that. And so you begin to make compromises.
Right.
And that's the story of this guy named Mark in the Studdick.
Don't spoil it for me. What are you doing?
Mark Studdick. And he's afraid. He wants to make it. He wants to have meaning. He wants to have success. And he feels somewhat guilty. And so he's willing to make these small compromises. And Lewis has this brilliant way of sort of taking that psyche apart and saying, how could a man get to the point where he might do something really evil? Well, watch this.
Yes, this is how.
And so, we need a whole lot more Lewis up in here.
Where do we get your book at?
Amazon.
And your books are at Amazon?
Yes, both.
The Bible and Homosexual Practice, right?
Bible and Homosexual Practice.
And we'll link to them in our email.
Yeah. And you also got the book Live Like a Narnian.
Live Like a Narnian.
So if you
so we get all those signed then, right? Until next week, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. And if you're in the PCUSA, get out. I'm sorry, Doc. I'm sorry.
No offense taken.
What are you still doing over there? I mean, I'm happy you're fighting, but what are you
Yeah.